Since 1833, this green space had been set aside for militia purposes, and putting the statue in the middle of the square was going to disrupt the parading and drilling of the cadets and the militia. Hi, this is Nick Butler from the Charleston County Public Library. Today I'm back in Marion Square to once again talk about the Calhoun Monument that's behind me. Now, you might remember back in June of 2020, the tall marble shaft and the bronze statue of Mr. Calhoun that were on the top of this massive granite base were taken down in a big public spectacle in June. And so here in the last week of October 2020, demolition is about to begin on the granite base of this statue. And I've gotten a lot of questions recently from people in the community, including the media, about a time capsule that may be found in the base of this statue. So today I want to give you a little chronology of that 1858 time capsule, which is actually what they called at the time a cornerstone. And this statue behind me was created in the 1880s, and the tall shaft of granite with Mr. Calhoun on top was put there in 1896. But that's right, I did say 1858. So we're going to talk about the origin of that cornerstone and where it was buried on 3 separate occasions here in Marion Square. John C. Calhoun died in Washington, D.C. in the spring of 1850, and his body was brought back by railroad to Charleston for burial. And at that point, a collection began to create a physical monument for Mr. Calhoun here in Charleston. And that effort was spearheaded by the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association. And by 1858, the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association decided they had enough money to commission a sculpture and to begin the project. And so, as really a fundraising effort to continue gathering money, they had a cornerstone ceremony, a ceremony really for beginning the monument, not physically building it, but beginning the fund drive for it. So on June 28th, Carolina Day, 1858, hundreds, perhaps thousands of Charlestonians gathered here in Marion Square to watch the Freemasons of Charleston deposit a cornerstone into a ceremonial brick sarcophagus, if you will, here in the middle of Marion Square. We don't know the precise location, but it was roughly in the middle of the square, so said the contemporary newspapers. And that ceremony concluded on June 28th. 2 months later, the civic authorities decided to move that ceremonially placed cornerstone to a location where they thought the statue would be built. So on August 31st, 1858, that cornerstone, that box, was dug up and moved to a point about 50 to 70 feet in front of the main entrance to the Citadel building behind me. That's where they thought the statue would stand when they finally did complete it. They had envisioned a much smaller statue or monument than what we see here in Marion Square today. So for 27 years, from 1858 until February of 1886, the cornerstone, or time capsule if you will, was deposited somewhere just on the other side of this flagpole behind me, close to the main entrance of the Citadel building. So after the Civil War, when the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association finally did have the money to actually build a statue, they started negotiating with the city about where this statue would go. And of course, the city had planned that it would be closer to the entrance of the Citadel building and to leave the parade ground that we now call Marion Square open for the public. But the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association really wanted to put this statue in honor of John C. Calhoun right in the middle of Marion Square. In March of 1885, the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association reached an agreement with the commissioners who maintained Marion Square to put the statue of Calhoun right smack in the middle of the square. And that would be an appropriate showcase for what they considered South Carolina's greatest hero at that time. But it wasn't too long before the leaders of the Citadel and the field officers of the 4th Brigade of the South Carolina Militia, who technically owned Marion Square, to remind the ladies that this was a designated parade ground. Since 1833, this green space had been set aside for militia purposes, and putting the statue in the middle of the square was going to disrupt the parading and drilling of the cadets and the militia. So a compromise had to be worked out. The newspapers of 1885 described this cornerstone as a freestone box, or a cube of stone that had been hollowed out. The dimensions given in the newspaper in 1885 were 32 inches broad, 20 inches across, and 14 inches deep. Now, this was a hollowed out stone with a white marble lid on it. And below the lid were deposited the following items, according to the newspaper. A cannonball, which was recovered from Charleston Harbor and which was supposed to have been used in the Battle of Fort Moultrie in 1776. A case containing a banner that had been carried by local seamen in the funeral procession in honor of Calhoun in 1850. $100 in continental issues, or continental greenbacks. A lock of Mr. Calhoun's hair in a small tin case. And then multiple lists naming different members of the cabinets of the general government from the inauguration of President Washington to 1858. The names of all the governors of South Carolina, the names of all the mayors of the city of Charleston, the members and officers of the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association, the Committee on Arrangements, marshals, orators, officers of the Grand Lodge of Ancient Freemasons of South Carolina who had deposited this cornerstone in 1858, and a number of other civic officers. And a copy of a historical sketch of the rise and progress of the Ladies Calhoun Monument Association, and a copy of the last speech John C. Calhoun gave in the U.S. Senate on March 4th, 1850. And among these were also a few coins and a few other published mementos. Included with all of these items were a few American coins from that era and some other publications, that is, paper documents relating to the life and career of John C. Calhoun. So until next time, I'm Nick Butler from the Charleston County Public Library. Thanks for joining me.